last we met, we were joined by a new guest on this quest. And although our guide has released our hands and sent us upon the land, the quest continues. Now we recklessly and foolishly explore the world together. It's ours to discover. Yet, with another new adventure, mistakes are bound to happen. But that's okay, because the truth is, sometimes we all goof. Welcome back to another episode of the Ink Table Podcast, a Lorcana podcast where a group of fellow Illumineers gather around the metaphorical ink table and share their table talk with you. So if you enjoy lore, art, a sense of community, comedic banter, or just all things Disney, then pull up a seat and join hosts Dylan Bailey and Preston McNair as they discuss the ever-changing world of Lorcana.
Man, what an intro. Thank you, John, once again. I'm really loving these new intros, guys, and I hope you are too. But we're in for a treat on this one. Once again, thanks for pulling up a seat here at the ink table and joining us as we talk that ever-world changing of Lorcana. And man, has it been changing here recently, Preston.
Too fast. Too fast. There's a lot to talk about today specifically. I know we've been talking about what this episode would look like for probably 4 or 5 days now, but there's a lot that's happened. And before we get into there, I still can't stop thinking about our last episode, right, Dylan? Like, that was just a lot of fun with Rebekah. I'm very, very happy that Rebekah came on the show. Still one of my listen, all the episodes are my favorite, but that was probably one of my favorite episodes. That was just a perfect conversation, and it's just all around a really good time. But yeah, should we just really get right into it?
I hope in the future. Yeah. I hope in the future we can get some more guests in like that. And really, really quick housekeeping for you guys. We do have the unboxing videos coming. But as you'll see with a running theme in this episode, there have been a lot of goofs going on. My computer has been acting pretty goofy here recently, and the last unboxing video that I tried to export to YouTube said it was going to take 88 hours to export, and after waiting those 88 hours, the file was then corrupt. So I have to figure out something else, but they are coming, we promise. And outside of that, when we have quite a few more different goofy stories coming this episode, but our main topic, we will, Preston, jump right into it. Let's put the ban in this banter.
Yep, let's do it. So the main topic today, and really for the week, and really for the time being, is that we have our first card bans in Disney Lorcana history. Banned from constructed. We'll get into the logistics of what this looks like in just a little bit. But if you're watching on YouTube, you're probably seeing some visual aids along the way. If you're on audio formats, then we'll do our best to make sure that we describe each of these to you all. But our first 2 card bans were announced on April 8th. I believe that was Tuesday. And Hiram Flavorsham, Toymaker, and Fortisphere have been banned from core constructed formats. I would say effective immediately, but it was effective the same day that the press release went out, right? So our first card ban
effective April 8th.
Effective April 8th, but only in core constructed. And we're going to explore what the logistics of this looks like a little bit. But it's important to note that before we get into the cards is that core constructed, some people might just be hearing these formats for the very first time, but core constructed is the format that Disney Lorcana Challenge uses, as well as store set championships. Unofficial sanctioned tournaments do tend to use core constructed, and weekly play at most local game shops. I do want to point out that they were, and we'll talk about the conversation that Steve Warner was having in Discord and whatnot, but it's important to note that stores can use a variety of formats. They can even use Pack Rush as their official weekly play, but in terms of a normal game of Lorcana, Hiram and Fortisphere are banned. Now, a couple things I do want to touch on before we get into it is I want to describe these cards first, because these cards have actually been out for quite some time. I know Dylan's been running Fortisphere for quite a while. I know that Sapphire has been a staple in a lot of Hiram's been a staple in a lot of Sapphire decks for a very long time. So before we talk about the reasoning behind these bans that they have provided and the impacts to these decks, let's take a look at these cards here. So we'll debrief Hiram first. So Hiram Flavorsham is a Sapphire 4 ink cost inkable card with 1 strength, 6 willpower, and I believe that is the super rare classification, if I remember right. Dylan, can you hold me accountable? I think that's super rare, the little triangle and the bronze triangle at the very bottom. This
That's rare.
Rare? Okay, so rare. Super rare is the little platinum looking one. But
It's
this is a card.
One. Yeah,
the silver one. So this is a card that we've had since Rise of the Floodborn set 2. So here in Flavorsham, questing for 1 strength, 6 willpower, the ability of Artificer. That's how I'm going to say it. I know we have a rough time with pronunciation from time to time on the show, but the ability is when you play this character, and when he quests, you may banish 1 of your items to draw 2 cards. So very strong card draw mechanic in Sapphire. I think ever since Rise of the Floodborn, it has been a staple in a lot of Sapphire decks. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's been around. But there's a lot of reasonings, and I know that we're kind of jumping kind of all over the place here, and in terms of our notes and whatnot. But we'll do it in the flow here. So there's Hiram. There's the ability. We'll break down the reasonings once we talk about our next card, and that is actually going to be Fortisphere. So Fortisphere is going to be a 1-cost inkable steel item with 2 specific abilities. This has been around since the 4th set. So that's what? First chapter, Floodborn, Inklings, Ursula's Return? Inklings? Ursula's Return, I think. Yeah.
Ursula's.
So Fortisphere has the ability of Resourceful. So whenever you play this item, you may draw a card. And Extract of Steel. Sorry, folks, a little bit of background noise, but Extract of Steel. You pay 1 ink to banish this item, and chosen character of yours gains Bodyguard until the start of your next turn. So Bodyguarding being that ability that if an opposing character wishes to challenge one of your characters, they have to target the Bodyguard first if they're able. So I remember whenever we first mentioned this inside our Discord chat, we had some pitchforks out, and honestly, I think Dylan had a couple pitchforks kind of by his desk at the ready and whatnot over Fortisphere specifically. But I know we're going to get into the reasoning behind these bans and whatnot, but Hiram has been a topic of discussion for a while. But Fortisphere, Dylan, like what was your initial reaction?
Out of left field, was it not?
What was it?
Okay, so it's completely out of left field for me. So we have seen people ranting for multiple sets now about specific cards that need banned or they wish would be errated, similar to Bucky, or would just be banned in play in general. Flavorsham has always been there. Paul Sickle as well. Now, this set in particular, we're seeing the same argument towards the new Tamatoa and the new 3-drop Bell that we've talked about since before she even actually released, and we talked about how big of a card and important of a factor that she herself was going to play. And even Diablo and stuff in the past, and Prince John, whenever discard was a big thing. But these being the first cards that really got banned, Fortisphere, to me, not seeing anyone complain about Fortisphere ever, out of nowhere, completely left field. And again, once we get into the reasons why Steve Warner and the Ravensburger team has decided to ban the card, there is an explanation. There's also some non-explanations that we think may be explanations. But to me, it really hurts because this is a card that I have played since it very first released.
Yep.
In almost all of my decks. If I ran Steel, I ran Fortisphere.
Yep. And not just necessarily for the card draw, but you were using the bodyguard component of Fortisphere very frequently. So
Yep.
I will say this, as we get into the reasonings, which is coming up very soon, I will say that ever since the Bucky era, Ravensburger has always provided a pretty detailed explanation as to why they're doing this. So I will say that, I do appreciate that there's a good level of communication around these particular bands here. So our first two bands ever in the game in core constructed. So in the press release, they were very clear that you can still continue to play Hiram with friends, with family, at homebrew nights, game nights, etc. But anytime where there is an official Lorcana event, which uses core constructed, which is most tournaments, whether it be Gen Con, PAX, DLC, store championships, and weekly play, this effectively bans him from those game formats. For lack of better words, he's banned from proper games of Lorcana, but not from the game. I want to be very clear with that, because could we have a throwback night? Sure, absolutely. But he's not gone entirely from the game. They're just not going to delete him. It's just you cannot use him in the core constructed format. Now,
and I think the big one that this affects, because they did say in kind of the press release that they want to go ahead and do this now before set championships, so 3.5 weeks before set championship starts. But that doesn't take into account all of the unsanctioned Lorcana events all across the world, whether it be the 5Ks taking place or the different competitions for cases and stuff like that, because they all use core constructed as well. And there's so many of those that everybody might have time to change their decks in time for set championships or in time for worlds if we ever get a date, but that doesn't necessarily mean that people had the proper amount of time for those unsanctioned tournaments.
right, it was immediate. So that left a lot of folks scrambling before weekly play. And before, we had some pretty big events this weekend as well. No, we don't talk about that exclusively. We're not going to list them, but there were some pretty big events and some really interesting results out of that. But before we talk about the reasoning, let's explore where we've been with gameplay updates. So it was almost about 10 months ago, roughly, that we had the Bucky era. And I know we make joke of the Bucky era and whatnot, but this is the first card bans ever in the game, and the first time that we've had an update to gameplay rules or at least card legality rules since Bucky. So if we remember, Bucky did get errated, and there's probably a little bit of confusion between errata versus ban, and why would a game developer like Ravensburger doing Lorcana prefer one over the other? And what you're seeing on screen now should be the Bucky erratas versions. So Bucky was the first card that ever got errated. On the left was the original version. He was a 2-cost inkable with ward, and whenever you simply played a floodborne character, each opponent chose or selected and discards a card. This created and one of the reasonings was that the lack of ability to interact with Bucky, whether it be with removal and just the very early shift targets, it made it very hard to interact with Bucky to get rid of Bucky. So they heavily errated this card, made him a 3-cost inkable, and removed the ward, and only your opponent discards a card if you played a floodborne character and used shift to play them. So erratas are basically whenever a game developer decides to go, hey, it's still good, but this is what the card is going to read instead. So the new Bucky, was actually part, I believe, of the buy a box promo for Azurite C, I believe. So game shops were provided this card and they were distributed. Did everyone get a playset? No. No. But they kind of nerfed the squirrel into oblivion, for lack of better words. But they made it very clear, and I don't want to quote this specifically, but I'm fairly certain that inside the press release that they gave whenever Bucky was errated is that they would prefer to do bans than very dramatic erratas like this. And immediately Once we saw Fortisphere in the crosshairs and got banned, people were like, why couldn't we just errata that? And we'll get into that reason in a few moments here. But the important thing, though, is that erratas are permanent. They supersede the text of the card. But bans could be temporary. They can be reversed. They might be a part of shuffle. So, Dylan, like that's part of other card games, right? Is they'll cycle through cards,
Yes.
unban cards.
So
What kind of history with that?
it's an ongoing with other TCGs. Again, this is really my first TCG getting into and playing, but I feel like I know quite a bit about other TCGs and keeping up with them. And you're seeing the tell of two tells here with Bucky. And this explanation should explain, again, going back to why they would choose to ban instead of errata. But it's also crazy. I want to point out real quick that 9 months ago we were going through this, but look how many new Lorcana players there are who didn't have to go through, like, live through this Bucky anyway. So this may be the first time they're hearing about this or actually seeing this Bucky because he's been updated in the app. But yes, Bucky was errated into oblivion, and he's almost unplayable now. And at the time, Bucky was an issue. But if we look at the cards that Ravensburger has introduced now, I think that there are plenty of counters that could get around Bucky. Same way that there are plenty of counters that can get around Diablo. I know a lot of people are worried about Diablo right now. So instead of doing more erratas to cards, then you're going to have to worry about redistributing cards that players may already have, which you already talked about that. But if you plan on releasing cards later on in the future or in future sets that could help the issues that are going on with cards, like we're seeing with Hiram or Fortisphere or whatever now, any card that is banned now, later on, whenever they've released new cards that could be the counter, then they could take those cards and reinstate them back into Core Constructed because they're not necessarily broken anymore because there are more answers for them.
Right. So that's some good news. Now, will we see Hiram unbanned in the near future? Unlikely. The game is still in its it's still very unlikely. It's still early in its infancy, but we don't know what's on the horizon, especially as we get into Jafar and Fable. But before we dig into some quotes from Steve Warner as to why they did this and dig into the press release, what are some impacted decks that we're seeing? Because we have 4 listed out, but I think it's important we talk about what decks are impacted, both meta and non-meta, because many I say rogue decks, but many just homebrew decks, princess decks, wheel decks, were running Fortisphere and Hiram. So what's kind of our big impact, our heavily impacted decks here?
Well, the two main ones, which Ravensburger is completely aware of, which is why these decisions were made in the first place, are Sapphire Ruby and Sapphire Steel. Because the Paul Sickle engine has been there since Floodborn, and we just looked not too long ago at the North America Championship, and over half of the decks there were brand Sapphire. Out of 100 some decks, or even the top 64, majority of those decks were Sapphire decks.
And I think that in itself is a
outside of that.
Oh, I think I get a little lag from Dylan's side. But I think that's key. What you just mentioned, Dylan, is I think anytime we have like an official event where at least over 50% of the decks are running a specific color, that to me kind of raises a few questions in a sense. Like I'm all for very healthy metas, but yeah, like 50% of players at some of these events are running Sapphire to some degree. That's usually a pretty good indicator. But Ruby, Sapphire, Sapphire Steel. But what are some other ones? Because Dylan, I know you're sad about one in particular.
Well, my Jafar Will deck, for one, to me, this was a great way to draw a card and draw into something else that allowed you to draw more cards whenever it worked with Jafar. And then, in particular, the Bodyguard deck. It's not meta right now, especially with the Mushu decks out there and everybody running Mushu, Calhoun, Robin Hood. And you don't really want to play a bodyguard deck where you have so many characters that can be challenged. But there was a bodyguard deck in the past that was Amber Still that I ran that was almost all bodyguards, and they were wanting to protect the pig. So you had the little piglet out there that you could continue to quest for extra lore and stuff. But being able to give characters bodyguard in any deck to me was a great secondary ability of this card. And honestly, to me, it was kind of the primary ability. The fact that it was inkable, yes, the card draw was great, but a lot of times I just wanted it there so I could give a character bodyguard.
Speaking of bodyguards, you also got another archetype as well.
Do we?
Oh, sorry. No, I read that backwards.
Ruby
Yeah, no.
Sapphires?
Sapphire Steel, bodyguard decks, and Jafar Wheel are the other two as well.
Yep.
So, thoughts. So many thoughts, folks. If I would get in trouble, this is where I would just post a screenshot of Dylan's initial reaction in Discord and put it in the video right now, because yeah.
Listen, I was at the ready, like you said, with pitchforks. I was ready to riot, free Fortisphere. Again, at that time, we had not had. I don't even think it was announced yet that Steve Warner was doing his Q&A session. Whenever we immediately got this, because it was like, bam, here it is, and it was so out of left field for me as somebody who has always used that card since it was released. But like I get it now. I understand. So my original feelings have slightly shifted. I still think that Fortisphere was caught in the crosshairs of other decks. Primarily, and I'm just going to jump right into it. The Sapphire Steel deck from this set, and we can talk about this now because I think it's going to be reflected on some of the stuff that Steve said and some of the stuff that he answered. But the Sapphire Steel deck that has became a primary piece of meta in this particular set. Like, we've seen it used in the past, and I know a couple of sets ago there was like a tournament where it was like North American players versus European players. And the US team, they primarily built Sapphire Steel decks. That was their core deck that they were running. But it still didn't have all the pieces that it has now due to Scrooge McDuck being released, due to the new Bell, due to the new Shiny Crab or whatever. And I think that this decision really falls on Bell and Tamatoa to get rid of Fortisphere. And that's just personal opinion. No matter what Steve says, I mean, I get it, but business is business. You're not going to do anything with Tamatoa because Tamatoa costs so much. He's very expensive, and you don't want to make any erratas, bans, or anything to him because people have went out and spent a lot of money to get their Tamatoas. Yeah. And then the new Belle is a 3-drop character who, again, just came out. We've talked about her from the beginning. She is an issue where she can come out on turn 1 by banishing an item. Okay? Well, Sapphire already had Pawsicle. Fortisphere is another 1-drop item. So, I mean, yeah, there are plenty of 1-drop items out there. And I know we talked about it a little bit yesterday at League, or I think I overheard some discussion of this isn't going away. People are still going to run 1-drop items like Shield of Arendelle or whatever. But the big difference is Pawsicle and Fortisphere gave you that extra card draw.
Yeah.
Card draw is one of the most important things in this entire game.
It made
and then the fact that you had 8, it did. But then you had 8 items, 8 1-drop items that when you play them, you get to draw a card, so it replaces itself, as people say, and then you can banish that item, not even using its secondary effect. So, again, that's an issue too. Is people weren't using it for the bodyguard ability. They were only using it for the card draw and Bell. That's it. Or Tamatoa. So people really weren't even banishing Pawsicle anymore to heal 2 characters. Or to heal up to 2 damage. Or banish Fortisphere to give a character bodyguard. It was all about helping Tamatoa quest for more and getting your 3-drop Bell out on turn 1. And it became too consistent, as we'll also see, thanks to all the draw power that it gave this new deck. And I think this one deck ruined Fortisphere for every other possible still combination out there.
Yeah. And I think it's also important to note that not only was Fortisphere great at drawing, you replace itself, but it was also Hiram food. It was also allowing players it
Yeah,
gave steel
one draw.
players, yeah, it just card draw. It gave Sapphire Steel players the ability to just consistently churn through their deck and find what they're looking for. And same goes for Ruby. It allowed players to go through and thin through their deck. And I think this is a great transition as to the why. Why were these cards banned? And again, I want to applaud Ravensburger because just like we mentioned, the initial reaction to this was whoa. But then they've always done a really good job at communicating why they errated Bucky. And in this case, they also did a very good job explaining why they did what they did with Hiram and Fortisphere. So, well, I'll start off with Hiram, and then we'll let Dylan talk about his poor little Fortisphere here. But so Hiram
Sphere
itself,
that could.
yeah, wait, good. So Hiram itself. So we've already talked about this. Again, I know we don't talk about meta, but again, if you're playing Ruby Sapphire or Sapphire Steel, you're looking for those one-drop items that replace themselves. Popsicle, Fortisphere, draw a card on turn 1, pass. You're eventually looking for your Hiram Flavorsham and your Ruby Steel, your Sapphire Steel and Ruby Sapphire decks. A couple different ways Hiram worked. You could let's say like Hiram's he was 4 inkable. Yeah, he was 4 inkable. So a couple different things here. You could leave items out on the field, and then eventually, whenever you played Hiram, you could banish to draw 2 cards. But also there was the ability to, let's say if you had 5 ink, you could play a Popsicle, you could play a Hiram, and draw 2 more cards, banishing that Popsicle. So in one turn, you could easily net 3 cards, 3 brand new cards from play, which is very powerful card draw. And a lot of Sapphire players, a lot of Sapphire decks were running Hiram just for that ability in itself, puppy decks and so on. And we get into the reasoning a little bit. Now, there was 2 methods in which they shared information as to why these cards were banned. Now, there was an initial press release from the Lorcana website blog, and then Steve Warner, who I believe his title is design co-lead or lead co-designer, one of those 2, forgive me. He published an open letter on Discord, and then also did a Q&A for about 2.5 hours in Discord on Tuesday. So this is a quote
What a mess that was.
Yeah, and I want to say,
probably not on him.
yeah, no, nothing on them. The community managers did everything right. Poor Steve only got to. I was looking at the timestamps from the time the first question got posted, and whenever he was replying to those questions in Discord. In 2.5 hours, they only made it 20 minutes into questions in the timestamps. So there was still over an hour, probably an hour and a half of questions that just simply they couldn't get to, and we don't fault them for that. So I appreciate the thoroughness that Steve was doing as well, just answering as many valid questions in order as they came in. But one of the quotes, again, I believe this is a direct quote, but basically very similar to Bucky's reasoning is one of the reasonings they did with this. I think this was from the press release or the open letter, is that for Hiram specifically, the inability for opposing players to interact with Hiram Flavorsham Toymaker felt less enjoyable than we want in a game of Disney Lorcana. Items such as Fortisphere that Hiram's ability banished before opponents could interact with the combo gained a large advantage that was virtually unstoppable. So that kind of goes back to what I laid out in before I gave that specific reasoning, was if you played your cards right, you could net 3 cards between a Popsicle and a Hiram, either entering or questing. Very powerful card draw.
Or a Popsicle.
Popsicle, yeah. Any one-drop item that replaced itself. So the card draw was variable 1. But then the second quote I have here is drawing 4 cards is a bit much before you can really deal with him, is a bit much. That would normally count that this would normally counteract discard completely with just one card, combined with new strategies that Sapphire has from Arcasia's Island, made the ability to counterplay versus Hiram less likely. So that's a reasoning behind Hiram, or not our reasoning, but their reasoning behind Hiram. I'm not going to lie, I'm more afraid about Bell and Tamatoa than I was Hiram. Like, not going to lie. There was, it is a powerful card draw.
I think
but
that goes into the answer there at the end of what you just read is
Yeah.
combined with new strategies that Sapphire has from Arcasia's Island.
Yep.
Those new strategies being Tamatoa and Bell.
Yep.
I mean, the man said it himself without saying it.
Yeah. So, very similar reasoning they gave for Bucky. The lack of inability to interact with that combination made it very powerful. For the decks that I played, I'm brawling Hiram. I'm, Ruby Sapphire's Maleficenting Dragon, playing that card and getting rid of it. But again, 6 willpower is also a lot of willpower to get through on turn 4 and turn 5 as well. I know a lot of folks were using Fortisphere and giving Hiram bodyguard himself, because knowing that he could probably take at least a few beatings. So Hiram is banned. There's the reasoning. It makes sense. It's been discussed. The thing with Hiram is that it was also conditional card draw too. You needed to have Popsicle. You needed to have Fortisphere, some other item in play in order to net. Now, something that I don't think we have in here, but something that was addressed inside, I believe, the open letter, was that they even explored banning Popsicle. Thoughts on that, Dylan? Getting rid of Popsicle? I'm okay with Popsicle hanging out, but I don't know. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, Popsicle was fine. I think it was just the interaction between Popsicle and Hiram. And I think that Fortisphere, again, was he kind of got caught in the crosshairs. So they didn't want to necessarily get rid of Popsicle. So how do you stop that? Or what do you do to counteract the Bell? Because if you didn't get rid of one of them, then you still had 8 cards that somebody could play in their Sapphire Steel deck to get that Bell out on turn 1. So instead of getting rid of Popsicle as well, they just did Fortisphere instead.
The stray bullet, and we'll talk about that. With the stray bullet. But now that we have a little bit more context behind Hiram, I want us to go back in time. About 6 months ago, roughly? Some of you may have never seen this before, and some of you probably remember this. But Dylan, do you remember back a couple months ago whenever the Lorcana companion app updated and they actually had a error, Hiram Flavorsham? Yeah. So
I know all the Sapphire Ruby players from then definitely remember, because
definitely
they were the
remembering.
ones that probably saw this before anybody.
Yeah. So actually, this was August. So almost we're pushing almost a year of this. A little bit further back than what I thought. But there was a panic in the community back in August of last year whenever the companion app updated, and Hiram was different. Instead of saying when you play this character and whenever he quests, you may banish one of your items to draw 2 cards, it said 1 card. And oh my gosh, that was like watching like a bad car accident on like the Facebook groups and the Discord. I couldn't look away. But they eventually came out and said that there was an error on their app concerning Hiram. It says we are working on correcting the error. The card is supposed to. So they clarified that yes, he is supposed to read, you may draw 2 cards, but they worked on correcting the error. I'm not an app developer, nor am I a graphic designer. But the fact that this happened, just speculate. I don't speculate very often, but to me, this probably happened because they were probably looking at Hiram way back in August. This is something that I think, again, I'm not a graphic designer, I'm not an asset manager for apps, but this card that said 1 card had to have potentially existed for a reason. It may have been a genuine error by an artist or a third-party entity on the app, but the coincidence here, I don't know. What do you think?
I will say that in the past, and maybe the app has updated since then and it works a little bit differently, but when this happened, in the past, when the Lorcana companion app updated, it didn't always, for whatever reason, automatically update. You had to go into your Play Store or your App Store, whatever it was on your phone of choice or whatever you were using, and update it yourself. You essentially had to do like a force update to make this go through. So the fact that this came through on one of those updates means that it snuck its way in there. But to me, this looks like, again, I will speculate. I'm not going to play around like that. I mean, it is what it is. Like, if it's a
It
duck, it's a
existed.
duck. If it walks like a duck, it's a duck. This to me looks like an errata. That they were, if you base it on what they're saying about Flavorsham now and other things that we'll get onto later on whenever we talk about Steve Warner's feedback and Q&A discussions that he gave answers to or whatever, this looks like they were trying to errata Hiram, or at least looking at it before they actually came to a final decision to just ban him. And this may have been again, could have snuck its way in there and it was just by accident, or it could have genuinely been like, hey, let's just drop this in here and get player feedback and see what the feedback is.
Yeah, I never thought about that. Like, oops, this happened, and then watch like kind of the feedback of it happen. So yeah,
Yeah, before we actually come and make a final answer. We can't speak on them on their
right.
behalf, but I will speculate. I mean, I'm not going to joke around
To
like
me, the
that.
card existed. Like that just doesn't like. To me, the card
Somebody put it
existed.
in there like that. You didn't change one number. You didn't change it from a 2 to 1 and be like, "Oop, my finger slipped." That didn't happen. Like this card, this
Right.
version of it existed.
Yeah.
And
So
it's
which
not like you had two different Hirams in there in the
no,
app. It was just this one. This was the only one
just
that
the one.
remained.
So which again, we're not speaking for them. We're just talking out loud. But that goes to show that they've been looking at Hiram since what, Shimmering Skies, roughly. So again, they have all the intel, right? They know what cards are coming out. They know They probably know deck combinations and deck types that we've never discovered yet. But clearly, very possibly that they knew what was on the horizon and they've been looking at this for a while. So, just nice little flashback, really, that this happened, and now almost a year later, Hiram's not banned. So yeah, Hiram will be Hiram in a sense. It's very disappointing because I rewatched The Great Mouse Detective and like drew a very like good connection with Hiram. I was like, okay, like I like how he's a toy maker. He's drawing more cards, and I'm like, oh no, like it's gone now. So a fun card. May Hiram rest. Maybe we'll see Hiram again in another era, if you will. But again, I do want to make sure that we applaud them here because these are pretty specific explanations. Like they don't have to give these explanations, but in good graces, they want to make sure that they do give good explanations. But now that we've kind of explored Hiram a little bit, we'll talk about the kind of the backside effects of this of what has immediately happened in the community. But Dylan, walk us through Fortisphere. Why did they action Fortisphere? What's their reasoning here?
So we'll go right into one of the quotes that Steve had here, and that it's Fortisphere was banned because we feel it placed too much emphasis on players using items in still, which is not aligned with the Ink's core strengths. Rather than fostering strategic depth and diverse gameplay, playing these cards together often led to predictable and one sided outcomes.
Hmm.
And so essentially, their reasoning is because, or the reasoning number one, I guess, is it was too consistent appearing in steel decks. And they don't like items being in steel decks because that is not one of the core strengths or values that we necessarily get in steel. I mean, look at the what is it? The steel Chromicon. It's like a 6 cost uninkable, the one that got done dirty compared to the rest of the crons.
Absolutely, because it's important to remember that in the story of Lorcana, each of the inks have their own identity. Ruby being very strong removal, Steel, Emerald being discard, Sapphire being ramp, Amber being very supportive and singing songs as well. So items, I'll
I
say
have
this.
some I have some thoughts on
Yeah,
there, and I'll save it for the end of this discussion.
sure.
But I get what they're saying because Steel also is one of the only ink colors that removes items
Yeah.
with Flatten Them and Benja and Aladdin and other cards. So I get it. Let's see. So one of the questions that somebody asked is just straight up about that. Is you mentioned that items in Steel were causing out of identity interactions that were too consistent. Does Sapphire's strength reduction identity lend to Ruby's strength based removal identity too consistently? How do you set the bar there, considering that Coil, Brawl, Sisu, Medusa, all of that works together and can consistently remove high value threats from the board with little downside? So I think this argument that somebody was trying to make, you were also trying to make at one point, and it's just that this entire game, and I'm feed off of this one a little bit, is this entire game is made up of the idea that we're taking two different inks that mean something else, and they have two different distinct core values, and we're making them work together. And there are so many different unique ways to do that. So even if still itself doesn't necessarily mean items, the moment you put it into a Sapphire deck that does revolve around items, that's just the blending and meshing of those two ink colors. And
Mhm.
this question that somebody asked was, well, if that was too consistent, then how do we feel about Ruby Sapphire, where one of them wants to decrease your opponent's character strength, while the other one is removing characters with low cost strength or low
Very
strength?
aggressively and frequently, mind you.
Very consistently. So then his answer was Fortisphere's effect of drawing a card when it is played is an issue with the number of cards that are drawing cards. Item synergy is not normally a still mechanic, quite the opposite, really, which we talked about because it's one of the only ones that actually removes items. And the number of cards in still drawing leads to too much consistency. Big thing there again. Consistency, consistency, consistency. It's so strange because as someone who deck builds here at home and has paid attention to other TCGs, I've always been told that you want your deck to be consistent. My decks aren't always consistent, but I've been told that you want them to be consistent to be a good player. I mean, go talk to these Magic the Gathering players.
Mhm.
Yet now they're telling us all of a sudden that if your deck is too consistent, it's an issue.
Hmm. So it's almost like, I mean, granted, we all want card draw, right? I mean, we think about Amethyst, for example. We'll talk about Ruby Amethyst too, but it's like, is it's like, are they saying that drawing cards is out of Steel's? I mean, it's almost like they're saying drawing cards is out of Steel's identity, or is the items? I don't know, because it's like no one wants to top deck in a sense. That's a situation that nobody wants to get into. But there are other card draw mechanics in Steel, like Beast and a Whole New World and things like that. So I don't know, like I know some people were making, and I want your thoughts on this, Dylan, too, because I know again you're passionate about Force, but it's like some people were saying that, like, Rapunzel, for example, healing and drawing is not in Amber's identity, for example. Like that's kind of the counter argument that a lot of folks are making here. I even saw the argument about like Maui Shark, for example. Maui Shark interacting with actions, is that really of the Ink's identity and whatnot? So it's like it almost sounds like they're trying to say in Steel and in Sapphire, you're going to have card draw, but that's not your strength in a sense. It's like we look towards Amethyst. Is that the vibe I'm getting from this? Because that's kind of how I'm reading from it.
So that's exactly what Steve answers next. So the next question that was asked is, my question is simple. With the recent ban of Hiram and Fortisphere, are you guys trying to monopolize heavy draw into a single color? Granted, whoever asked this question using the word monopolize in the way that they did made it seem like they were just trying to make it be like, yo, you can't have card draw at all unless you're
Right.
playing this color. And they were clearly upset about Hiram, I think. But his answer was that pure card draw, emphasis on pure there, is a amethyst identity. And that other colors have card draw, just like you said with Amber just now, but they are in their own unique conditions.
Mm.
And as somebody who's played Steel for a very long time, I know the effect of drawing cards in Steel. If you draw a card, chances are you're also going to have to discard a card. Like even Whole New World, right? I mean, a lot of times we're playing Whole New World when our hand is empty, but most of the time in Steel, when you draw a card, you have to discard cards along with that. Like even
Right.
even Doc, right? That somebody was playing, it's like discard your hand to draw 2 cards. Yeah, you might not have anything in your hand, but that effect or that condition in Steel is still discard things to draw cards,
Right.
or draw then discard. Either way. So maybe if Fortisphere was different and the wording was different and it wasn't just pure card draw with that first ability and it was a hey draw a card and discard a card, maybe it wouldn't have been banned, and that's all it would have taken. But
Hmm.
it wasn't like that. It was just the pure card draw, play it, draw one,
Yeah.
which we're still seeing with Paw
But we're not discarding with steel. And I have a mulligan we'll kind of bring up brief in a little bit, but something that I know we've talked about as well, something that we've kind of talked about is they laid out the Hiram food churning through your deck very well. They've made it very clear that when paired with certain ink colors, it is very consistent. It makes things very strong. But something, it kind of goes back to a previous question, but something that they kind of nodded to, but didn't exclusively mention was Bell and Tamatoa. And I kind of want to revisit that because that to me, and my own thoughts on this is, yeah, did Steve lean into that a little bit whenever he said that um, combined with new strategies that Sapphire has from Arcadia's Island made the ability to counterplay versus Hiram much less likely? To me, that's kind of a nod to Bell and Tamatoa, but we never got at least an explicit, like, at least officially, the words Bell and Tamatoa have not been said in any communications, really, to my knowledge. If there is a Q&A answer, we missed it entirely. But to me, the Fortisphere
I
ban.
believe that he did. I
Okay.
believe he did mention them because somebody brought them up. He said that they looked at Bell and Tamatoa, but without revealing anything or any cards in the future sets, that essentially that they didn't see Bell and Tamatoa as a ongoing issue the same way
Mm.
that Flavorsham has been an ongoing issue. As if taking Flavorsham and getting rid of him and getting rid of Fortisphere would kind of like make them not necessarily be problems anymore. Not that they were
Balance.
huge problems to begin with by themselves, but they will be well balanced now, and there might be better answers for them going forward as well.
It's, and maybe we'll see that. But whenever I initially saw these bans, I saw Fortisphere and I was like, that's just a Bell. Like they are reducing the amount of targets where you can play a 1-drop item and then banish that item on turn 1 to play Bell for free, which is still very strong. So to me, that was initially, but now that we have some more insight, I get it. But to me, that's how I initially felt about Fortisphere, is they were wanting to remove the amount of opportunities that a player could successfully banish a 1-drop item to play Bell for free. And also Tamatoa as well. Happy as a Clam has had a very big topic of conversation. So again, they're saying that they've analyzed them, and by doing this, they're shaping up in the future. A lot of people were pretty quick to not blame Tamatoa, but a lot of people were like, these cards should have never been printed. And I don't know where I stand on that issue because, again, we're talking about two very dramatic things that also impact other deck types like Tamatoa and Bell. Thoughts on this really being because of those new cards? I don't know what the answer to that is. I'm leaning no, but what do we think?
Well, Bell going from a $2 card to a 22-cent card, I think might have some answers there for that. I still believe that him saying that the new strategy is coming along with it. I mean, I look directly at that Sapphire Steel deck and Steve going around and saying that, hey, these are happening because this is an issue that we needed to address because over 50% of the player base was playing Sapphire.
Yep.
And they saw these decks. I mean, he put the Roz meme from Monsters Inc. in there so many times in the chat of in the Q&A
Always
of we're
watching.
always watching. So, I mean, he knows what's going on. The whole team knows what's going on. The big thing that I think comes from this isn't necessarily people saying that these cards should have never been printed, but it's the argument that goes alongside that of saying, hey, did you guys playtest? Because you playtest all of these cards. And then in Ravensburger's defense, they did come out and say, yes, we extensively playtest. But our team, in comparison to the amount of players, there are a lot of combinations of cards that we don't necessarily see because not only are we playtesting for regular like 1v1s, but we're also playtesting for multiplayer and Ursula's Quest or Jafar's, whatever that Palace Heist, and any other format that you can imagine. That's what they're playtesting. They're not necessarily focused on just the meta like other people are.
Yeah.
So the moment that these cards are released and put in our hands, we're seeing things that maybe they didn't because we as a collective are just a mass gathering of knowledge and a brain whenever it comes to this card game, all coming together at once and finding these solutions that they didn't know existed in the first place.
And think about how many games of weekly play happen in a week. There's so much more than what they could even possibly with humans play test as well. So and kind of to that point as well, they did ask what are they doing. They do look at unofficial sanctioned events. They play at their stores, they play at local game shops, they look at player feedback. And speaking of player feedback, um, talking briefly about Ruby Amethyst, because we talked about ink identities and we talked about feedback, and something that we heard quite a bit was why hasn't Ruby Amethyst been addressed? Because it seems like I don't know, maybe it's just the information that we see, but it seems like whenever a set is released, we never see anything about Ruby Amethyst. And then all of a sudden, come set championship or come DLC, boom, there's a Ruby Amethyst deck that pops up. And actually, what's interesting, and we couldn't get the screenshot in time for the show, but some major event just wrapped up, and somebody posted their matchups, and a good majority of those were Ruby Amethyst. So also part of that Q&A, and they were very specific to only answer questions around the bans and the methodology of the bans. People were asking about worlds and all this other stuff. But somebody did ask why Ruby Amethyst hasn't been addressed and why are bans just now happening. And their answer to that was Ruby Amethyst was a strong deck, but there were decks that people found that played well against it. But with 50% of the player base playing Sapphire, that is an issue we couldn't ignore. We did want to give set champ players some time to adjust, and with 3.5 weeks, we feel that they will be able to do just that. Also important to note that whenever Bucky was eroded, Bucky was allowed to go through the set championships. It was a couple weeks before the Bucky errata took place, and now we have this coming into play immediately. So they make a good case for Ruby Amethyst. There are very strong counters to Ruby Amethyst. I think it just goes back that it's just a very consistent deck. It has that amethyst ink. It has that amethyst ink identity. They're drawing cards, but there was a lot of people upset about the timing of this. Like, why couldn't they say, "Hey, on Friday, Hiram and Fortisphere are going to be banned and whatnot." So a lot of players were in a scramble, quite literally. But one thing that they did mention is that they did it immediately because it would be more clear. Players wouldn't have to wait until Friday, and then maybe communication doesn't get to the stores, or maybe communication doesn't get to certain events. So, I mean, 3.5 weeks is a good amount of time, but the meta, if you will, has been established for a while. So it's been really since the first weekend of Arcasia's Island release, we saw Ruby Sapphire and Ruby Steel skyrocket, continue to be part of that thing. So we have some other interesting data points, but I kind of want to get John's take on this too, because we always like to get John's take. Thoughts around the band. We'll round table. Thoughts in general about the bands.
I'm fine with it. I was kind of upset at first with Fortisphere, but I see a lot of people online. Well, popsicle. Well, the trouble is with popsicle. What is it? There's 2 other cards that specifically say popsicle in them. I know the. What is it? Nick Wild,
Judy Hobson or Nick Wild.
Nick Wild.
Yeah.
So I mean, you can't get rid of that. I mean, because it works with other things. I don't know. I'm all right with it. I've come down off my ledge.
We'll adapt.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't use Fortisphere very often, but I did put it in a brand new deck. Got to play it for 1 week, and then went, oh, okay, well, then I guess I'll just take them out. So
You just started to like Fortisphere, and it's like, well, never mind.
yeah, I was like, oh, that works. Oh, okay, well, forget it. But no, it's fine. I get it. As someone who not yesterday, but last week played against that deck with 4 popsicles, 4 Fortisphere, the Hiram, and the Bell, and just got decimated because at one point they had at least 7 items out on the field, kept playing McDucks for free, and then would banish 2 or 3 of them, and then draw them right back with Tamatoa. It was a nightmare to have to deal with, especially if you're running a deck that didn't have much item removal. It was a lot to have to deal with. So I get it. I'm all right with it. It doesn't matter. They'll figure it out.
Yeah.
They always do. Meta always does. It always figures itself out.
Right. Like they'll figure it'll figure itself out. And I know that Dylan and I have talked a lot about our thoughts around the bans and whatnot, but I do want to get some immediate thoughts from the team, because what did we see immediately right after the ban? We saw immediate calls for discard come back. And specifically, after the ban, the price of Diablo Devoted Herald went from $32 to $48 on average on TCG Player. And this was immediate, like, okay, what's happening? John, I see I'm muted here.
So. Somebody got lucky at League. I just traded my foil Diablo for some cards I needed, and then the next week it jumps up double the price.
Double the price. So the immediate response from the community was that discard will reign again, because discard against Ruby Sapphire so it was very hard because of the card draw consistency. But I don't know. Like, I think a lot of it just depends on your local meta, but thoughts on again, we don't know what's going to happen. Sets are around the corner, weekly plays rotating through. Dylan, do you think this kind of gives more fuel for discard? Because I think the community's already established that very aggressive discard is very unfun to begin with, but it's a valid play type. So thoughts on kind of the calls out that this is going to happen?
I think it will, and I think that's what Ravensburger wants. I know that a lot of people don't want to hear that, but in one of the questions that Steve answered, he said that, hey, Hiram's getting banned because his 1 draw or 1 extra draw that he's giving alone is enough to counter discard, much less 2. And I also like to look back at the stats of these different DLCs championships that have happened. Yes, we talked about how Sapphire was the most used, but we also spoke about the North American Championship, about how Emerald as a ink was the least used for the first time, behind Amber, because previously Amber was the least used, but all of a sudden Emerald was. And that's because discard kind of disappeared. Bucky left, the Floodborn mechanics left. Diablo is still good. Diablo is great. I don't want to say we all like Diablo, but Diablo is a good card. Yet, Emerald was the least used card at the biggest major competitive event in our continent as of now.
Yep.
So before Worlds happens, how do you set and define a more balanced meta? And I think this is the way that you raise that to where you're still going to have a majority of your players playing Sapphire, but now you're going to have more playing Emerald and those other ink colors as well.
I think the reason why even I'm okay with it too is Diablo is interactable. For example, there are
Yep.
options to interact. If you are playing Ruby, you have Brawl, you have Sisu. If you are playing Amethyst, you have Elsa that can exert the Diablo, whack it, get rid of it. If you're playing Steel Song, aka John in the room, Steel
Any
Song
kind of
has really
removal.
good answers to Diablo. So I think it's important for people to remember too that the Emerald, Steel, and even the Amethyst Emerald decks that we're seeing, it's still without Bucky. It's important to remember that because Bucky was the main issue that made that so unfun to begin with. There are answers, and I think if we kind of draw that comparison, I know it's like apples and oranges, but if you think about Diablo and you think about, say, for example, Hiram, which is easier to interact and potentially get rid of, whether it be the character or the items? Diablo still has a lot of answers, but they were very clear that they're watching it. They even said that they want discard to be a deck type, but it has to exist carefully in a sense. Because again, I think the consistency, at least for most people, is that you know having no cards in your hand to play is just not a fun game to play. You can't play the game if you can't do anything, and that's what made Bucky so aggressive. So I'm happy to deal with Diablo in a sense. Like we will overcome, and it's something that Dylan and I haven't really talked about for show notes, but it's been amazing what happens with two banned cards, what happens to the decks that we even saw yesterday at our own weekly play. So we have some individuals that do play some of those decks, and they started trying out Steel Song and other things, and I'm like, I know John plays Steel Song, but I'm like, wow, Steel Song's back. And then we have a Amethyst Emerald deck. So and this is likely going to be our last episode before we get to set championships. But now that this has happened, obviously we still don't know what's going to happen. How do we feel about the current state of the meta and deck combinations, viable deck combinations, going into what is going to be a nationwide, even global competition at stores for these set championship prizes? What do we think?
I'm excited to see the results. I hope that people are creative, and I know
Mhm.
I've seen a couple of people out there that are being very creative already. I know a couple of guys that they're just choosing a character in particular and saying, "Hey, this character is my mascot character. I'm going to build a whole deck
Yep.
just around that," and that's really cool.
Fun to
But
see.
I hope this opens up the floodgates and allows people and allows the meta to verge. I hate to say that I don't think it's going to change a whole lot. I think that your big deck that you're still going to see most of is going to be a action heavy Sapphire Ruby deck that's existed
Yep.
for probably about 3 or 4 sets now, but kind of got like the maximum use in Azurite Sea. I don't think it's going anywhere.
Yeah.
Sapphire
I
still it took a hit from this, but Ruby Sapphire will still exist.
Yeah, I think it'll still exist. I think we're going to see some people drop it entirely. That's going to happen, and I think again they did this for a reason, to balance things out and shift things up a little bit. Um, Before the show started, there was an event that concluded, and again, I know we don't have the screenshot here, but it was a um, some sort of event with 128 players, and what took first place was a Ruby Sapphire around Maui Shark. So I've said it from the beginning: the deck is Ruby Sapphire is not going anywhere. I completely concur with Dylan. It will exist in different forms, in different play styles, and maybe that particular deck list is the answer. I don't know. But
So do we know like from that photo? Again, we don't have it up, but was that DKP's deck list? Was
yeah,
that like just his deck list, or was he the one playing
that is that I haven't read it entirely, but I believe the context around this is what he played, and I would assume that this is the list. He even put out a Metafy guide
So
for
he
the
was
deck.
the one playing it.
Yeah,
Okay. So that says a lot too, because decks are one thing, but then you have some players that are just masters of what they're playing and they know how
yeah,
to run it, because anybody can go online and grab this deck list and try
replicate
to
it.
keep
Yeah.
a certain, yeah, and try to replicate it, but you can't replicate how someone's brain works
Oh
and
yeah.
how good of a player they are. So
I don't know. We'll see. Only time
that's
will
still
tell.
up for debate. We'll see.
Only time will tell. But I know we're kind of reaching in. But
My big
Dylan, I know
thing,
we have a couple other topics of this as well. Guide us through, my friend.
my big thing here before we move forward is I want one-on-one with you, Steve. One-on-one. You're always watching. I need you to watch this, and I need you to listen. I respect you, and I respect the answers that were given by you and the team. But I completely disagree that items are not a identity within Still. Yes, they are not the primary identity, yet there are still items that you have put in the game, such as the bow, that allows hero characters and other characters to gain challenger and evasive. There are items that are still being used in Still decks. Still has 21 items. I'm pretty sure it has just, it might have more items than Emerald. If anything, Emerald is the color or the ink color that doesn't like items. But you say that Fortisphere didn't go along with the core values of Still. My argument is this. The one thing outside of drawing cards that it did was allow any character, to gain that ability of Bodyguard. You allowed us to turn any character into a hero with that ability. And now that that card is gone, we are limited. Yes, we have Training Dummy, but I'm not a dummy. I don't want Training Dummy. We need another card that will allow us to turn any character into a hero, because that is the core value of Still. Look at Phil. Look at the other cards and the heroes. Yes, we have allies now, but even the allies that we have around us can step up and become heroes. So give us another card, give us another item that allows us to do such, and allows anybody to step up and become that hero that we all need. Thank you.
Mic
Please
drop.
let us.
Mic drop. You know, it makes me wonder. Was To me, again, Bodyguard is the identity of Fortisphere. And I know we're kind of on our wrap up section here, but Bodyguard is the identity is one of the identities of Steel. Could they have just errated it to say you may draw and discard a card? Do you think that would have been sufficient?
No, because they don't want to errata things. I mean, it falls
Fair,
back to that.
fair.
It's what's the easiest solution on their end of what they want to do. If they wanted it to say that, they would have made it say that to begin with. And that leads to the whole premise of this show. That was their first goof. You should have turned around and made it say draw a card, discard a card. That's why everybody's played it. Let's be real. Even me, every deck that I've played, I'm like, yeah, well, that's an easy one drop for me to throw in this Still, because I'm also drawing a card off of it. That's why he was in the Jafar will. The Bodyguard's nice, but yeah, the drawing card aspect of it, as soon as it came out, everybody looked at that and said, that's another Pawsicle. Why aren't we playing that? But I still want that Bodyguard ability on a different card or another card. All right,
I'd like to
but moving
think that
forward out of
we'll
the
get it.
bands, yeah, I hope. But moving forward out of the bands, I want to talk really quick about a deck in particular, and it's been a while since we actually brought our decks here to talk about. And this is one that is really, really special and important to me, because I have been trying to make this ability and this deck centered around support work since set 2. And I think I've finally done it. But there are some caveats. And we talked about this with Rebekah last week, and she was really, really intrigued in this deck, and she wanted to see how it played out. She wanted to hear more about it, so hopefully she's seeing this as well. But this is my Arcasia support squad deck, there may be a hidden acronym in there somewhere along the way that tells you how I that tells you how I feel about this entire situation. But just to point some things out here, yes, this is centered around Alice growing girl, but some really cool abilities that we have here are the new Queen of Hearts that came out in this set. That while she has damage on her, her strength is actually increased. And then the Cogsworth, who this Cogsworth is amazing. He was kind of the MVP of this deck because if you have a banished item in your discard, or at all, an item in your discard. So if I'm playing that Pawsicle and then I banish the Pawsicle to heal somebody, even for up to 0, and put it in my discard, Cogsworth then has 5 strength. That's half of what Alice needs whenever it comes to her ability of being able to quest for 5 whenever she has 10 attack or more. So him alone, that was pretty cool. Maximus is a finisher card. I only had 2 copies ever. I don't know if I ever build this deck again, that I'll probably max him out and put in 4 because he's such a good finisher. Even without Alice, he works in this deck because you're able to pass support around so much that at the end of your turn, as long as you have a character over 10 attack as well, you gain 5 lore that way. And I think it's over 5 lore you gain, or over 5 strength you gain 3 lore. So it's just super quick of gaining lore in that aspect. And while Alice does have the secondary ability of giving all of your other characters support while they're on the board, I really needed to make this work, have characters who already had that ability in the first place. So I played the Ducks. The Ducks were so cool in this deck, using Huey, Dewey, and Louie. They were really neat. Half of them quest for 2, so they're high questers. They can sing some of my songs there with Louis, who's the forecast brother amongst them. And then being able to actually use, I think it's Huey's ability, him being a rare card. So if you have a character named Huey and Louis on the field and you quest him, you get to draw 3 cards. A lot of people don't know about that effect or that ability. Even after they read it, they still don't really understand how that can actually quickly happen if you have the right cards. And it was a good scare tactic. I've actually got it to pull it off quite a bit, and it's great card draw, which this deck definitely needs, which is also why we're playing the Shift Queen of Hearts, because if we challenge, then we can draw cards that way as well. But it's also a scare tactic, because people are like, oh, now, cool, you got Huey there. I got to make sure that I'm getting rid of some of these ducks so you don't get the card draw. So it's kind of like making them look one direction when you're really trying to set stuff up on a completely different end. So you have Li Shang, who, for any of your characters who have 4 attack or more, then they automatically, without him doing anything, as long as he is on the field, they get to quest for an extra lore. That's easy to do when you're passing support around. Clarabelle, who came out in this set, star MVP, fantastic. She quests for 2. When she's on the board, all of your characters with support gain +1 attack. So most of the characters in this deck already have support, and if they don't, once Alice is there, she's giving them support. So if you're looking at this, one thing that you might be looking at that you see that I don't necessarily have a lot of is removal. We have 4 copies of Beaking Undisputed to get past Ward. But the secret sauce behind all of this is Namari and Mulan, but specifically Namari. And Preston can attest to this a little bit because when trying this deck in the past, I was able at one time to take out a Cinderella Stout-Hearted who has resist +2 using a Namari without even swinging into the Cinderella, because her ability states that whenever you damage a damaged character in a challenge, you can essentially ping that same amount of damage onto another character. So even if I don't have a lot of answers for evasive, as long as I can hit something, then I can pass that along and I can take out evasive characters, or I can potentially take out characters that have a high strength without even touching them. Especially when you can just pass your support around and have Namari swing into something for 13 or 14. And then you have the Mulan triple shot who's doing the same thing. Her shift is a shift 5. We're not playing any small Mulans in this at all because we don't need it. Her ability, whenever you do that 5 call shift, is she gains extra strength for that turn. I don't need extra strength for that turn when I can just pass support around everywhere. The only thing I'm missing out on is her being able to attack the turn she shifted. So I have to wait for her to dry first. But then it still scares people from questing because once she's on the board, if they know you can pass the support around, they don't want to exert anything at all because you can just board wipe them essentially with that one card. And then finally, we have the Great Illuminary, which is a location that I don't think I've ever seen anybody use.
I've never seen it.
This this location, whenever you have a character there with support, they get to quest for an extra lore. So this combos well with the entire deck, and they gain extra willpower. So they're just harder to take out. Either way, this was probably for the past month, 2 months, what I've been playing. This is my bread and butter that it's my baby. I really liked this. This was my fun Ruby Sapphire deck. And then whenever I started playing characters or inking characters at the beginning of the games, just scaring people because they thought that it was going to be like the meta Ruby Sapphire, and they had no clue what kind of fun that I was actually over here having. But sadly,
not going into all the
details. I bring this deck
details
up now, and I go ahead, and I show it now because there was another goof within my life that has made it to where this deck is no longer part of it because this deck was actually stolen out of our vehicle, and I don't have any of these cards anymore. So I am slowly rebuilding this deck. Maybe one day I'll play it again, but I just looked at it as a stressful opportunity of getting out of my comfort zone and going back to what I love doing the most, and that's deck building and finding more fun and creative things to play, which the guy saw yesterday. We had some fun. Maybe we'll show that deck off next time.
Whenever I don't want to spoil it because I do want to have Dylan deck profile that deck in our next episode. And I don't have a deck here just because I really haven't been organized play. But whenever I see Dylan sleeving up the new legendary Mickey Mouse, I'm like, what is he cooking over there? Like immediately that was my first thought. I was like, oh no. I was like, I didn't see one, I didn't see two, I saw at least probably 3. It looks so fun to play. So
it was pretty fun.
It was an unfortunate situation, but it kind of pushed Dylan to get out of the comfort zone of deck build. Isn't it funny how both my favorite deck right now and your favorite deck right now is something that is not even being discussed in like the meta at all, like truly. Like my off flavor Ruby Steel, your Ruby Sapphire. Again, we throw people off because it's like, oh no, like the meta, but it's like, no, like we're having a blast in our own game over here doing what we got to do. I love this Mulan because I think that card is just so underrated. The fact that she does not see more play in challenging decks, it just baffles me entirely. In my deck, which I'll probably showcase next time, the shift mechanic's really nice, and it's a I believe I had Mulan hitting for 8 yesterday. I shifted her for 5, break free for 6, Aladdin 4-drop, giving everything +2, hitting for 8. You don't need that in this deck. You like because all of a sudden I was like, oh, where's the Mulan? I'm like, wait, there are no tiny Mulans here. There are 0.
Don't need it.
So
yeah, I love just pass the support around and have her hit for whatever I want.
How often are you seeing Maximus resolve?
If Maximus is on the field and I've made it that far out to where I have 16 and I can get Maximus out every time, he's resolving because he's got 2 abilities there. It's the first one is if you have a character with 5 attack or more, then at the end of your turn you're getting 3 lore. And then the other one, which is the harder one to hit, is if you have a character with 10 attack or more, you're gaining 5. So, I mean, I'm always resolving with Maximus, at least with the first half of that ability. The second one's just cherry on top, especially if you have Alice and Maximus out and you set that up. I mean, that's 10 lore alone just from those 2. And then you got to have people quest to begin with to start passing the support around.
Right. Beautiful. Chef's kiss. I love it. It looks so fun. Chef's kiss.
But moving on from this, we are now going to go back to our lovely game of surprising Preston and blind ranking cards.
Here we go again.
And any guesses as to what our theme might be on this one? I mean, yeah, you already know, but
I know.
for our
And
audience,
honestly, it's fitting. It's been a goofy week for a lot of reasons, both personally and both of really all three of our lives, and with Lorcana and the 30th anniversary of the Goofy movie. I expected nothing less whenever I saw the theme was Goofy edition. So I'm pumped for this.
just goofy. All right, so let's hit you with the first one here.
All right, let's do it. I have
Let's
not
see
seen the
how
cards. I've
quickly
seen
I
the
can
theme,
do
but not
this.
the cards.
All right. So we'll do this first one. We'll hit you right in the nostalgia a little bit. This should pop up in our Discord chat.
I love it. I
On the
love
show
it
talk.
because I love it. So we
this
got
is Goofy Caring Cartographer. He's a 3-cost inkable Ruby card. 2/4. He is a storyborn hero who quests for 1. And his ability is Road Trip. So when this character quests, you may move it and one other character to the same location for free. And if you do, gain lore equal to that location's.
I like it because I say we, my wife and I, we just rewatched the Goofy movie a few days ago. So I love it. Very similar to, I believe, the Vanellope Von Sweets. I believe we have a similar ability. It allows you to move a character to a location. I do know that racers are a very valid deck archetype. So the utility on this is a lot. Is pretty good. There's actual pretty valid utility. Location decks have been a thing with Jim Hawkins, Tuck, whole 9 yards. Also, the quote here, "Now look where you got us, Dad," and that's Max saying that. So I love that. I'm gonna give this. How do we do? We do 5 being the lowest rated, and then the 1 being the highest rated.
Mhm.
So Goofy, this Goofy is gonna land in the 3 spot. It has pretty good utility. Very valid utility. So it's going to land the 3.
Yeah, see, I'm like you. At first, I actually wanted to make this a dual link with Ruby Amber, but then I got greedy and I was like, no, I really want to be able to combo this in Emerald as well because you also have Emerald. We don't see it a whole lot. I think it came out in Inklands with locations where there was a whole archetype within Emerald that was gaining lore, or you had characters that were gaining extra benefits from being at locations. Or there's even a Peter Pan that already has this passive that for every turn, whenever he moves to a location, you gain 1 lore or gain lore equal to that location's lore. So, yeah, to me, this was like the Tuck. Tuck, you play it, you can move him and another character for free, but you gain extra attack. Instead of the extra attack, you're just gaining whatever lore that location has. So some locations might not have any. Some might give you 1, some might give you 2.
Yeah. Hit us with the second
Something
one.
different. Okay. Let's drop Disco Goof in here.
Disco
If it
Goof.
works.
Let's see here. What do we got? All right. So what we got here, Dylan?
It's a 3-cost inkable Amber Goofy. It is Goofy Ready to Dance. Again, he is a storyborn hero. A 2/5. So he's kind of thick out there dancing on the dance floor. As you can see, he quests for nothing. Similar to the new legendary Minnie Mouse that we got in this set, but his ability is Disco Fever. So this character gains lore for each singer you have in play. So for every singer character you have in play, he can quest for that much.
So this is an interesting one because I do have a deck that I'm playing with at home that does make use of the new Minnie Mouse. So, and for those who are unaware, that Minnie Mouse, she gains +1 lore for each character you play that turn. This is just getting blanket. You're getting +1 for each singer you have in play. So, thinking realistically, if you play this Goof on turn 3, you could maybe have 1, 2, maybe 3 singers, or maybe 2 singers at best. It just depends. Maybe 3 if nothing got cleared out. Thinking about the low cost singers that we have, the Cinderella Ballroom Sensation comes to mind. It's failing me on how many we exactly have that are low cost. Could potentially be more of a closer card, maybe. I don't know. This might have to get the 4th spot because it's going to take some setup, might require some bodyguarding of your characters early on. So, or could you do it in the reverse? Could you play Goofy on turn 3 and then turn 4 drop a bunch of low cost singers? I don't know. So it's going to have to get the 4 here for me personally. But I do like the fact that it's a 2/5. But thinking, he could be easily removable. So he's probably going to get the 4 spot for me here.
I'm excited to see what John has to say about this one when we wrap up here.
John's going to have a completely different opinion.
As a Steel Song player, I think he might. But we'll see. Then our next one, and this one's a little different. Boom. As long as it goes through, we have the Egg Deliverer. Or the Egg Giver. This is a 3-cost, uninkable emerald card. It is Goofy Egg Giver. He is a 3/2, and he is a storyborn monster who quest for 2. And I put this tag in here because I truly think that this is a tag that we'll see in the future when Pixar is added, particularly with Monsters, Inc.
Oh, yeah.
And his abilities, he has 2 here, are Trick and Retreat. So this is actually from a short called Donald's Halloween that came out in the early 2000s, I do believe. And it showcased Huey, Dewey, and Louie along with Donald dressing up, going trick-or-treating. And you see Figaro and Minnie dressed up as like a witch and cat, and Mickey was a vampire. And then all of a sudden, this tree that's been following the kids here stops, and behind it is Goofy, dressed up like the Easter Bunny. Because to him, the Easter Bunny was scary. So this was showing him screaming boo to them, and then instead of delivering candy, he delivered them eggs. So his first ability is Trick. He exerts, and you spin 2 ink to give someone an egg, essentially, by setting chosen character's strength to 0 this turn. And then his second ability is And Retreat. So instead of Trick or Treat, it's Trick and Retreat. So when you play this character, return chosen character with 2 attack or less, or 2 strength or less, to player's hand. And that can be your own character or your opponent's. He quests for 2. And his little flavor text is directly from that short, and it's hippity hoppity, happy Halloween.
I love it. This is a hard one. So I like the fact that you did your imbalancing here. You set it to where you can't do the and retreat, or you can't use trick and retreat in the same turn. It requires setup. Oh, I mean, I think about Ruby and like Small Sisu and Brawl and things like that. It could be very beneficial. So I'm not gonna set myself up because I feel like every single time I blind rank cards, I end up leaving 1 and 5 open. So I'm actually going to give this. I'm gonna give this the 5, and maybe it is my lack of an emerald brain in a sense, because you could combo this with like Kick Cloud Kicker in a Sapphire deck, or even a Emerald Sapphire deck. But I'm gonna like to think I'm not gonna set myself up for failure. You know, 2. Never mind. Let's do 2. I'm gonna leave 1 and 5 open.
All right.
I'm not gonna do it. I'm gonna lock in 2. I'm not
gonna do it. Does it anyways?
It does anyway. This is gonna see the 2. Now that I've kind of drawed out like the Kit Cloud Picker combo, Ruby options. This is pretty helpful. Being able to exert pay to set something to 0, you could virtually Medusa, Brawl, Sisu, or even challenge something very easily. So it's gonna get my 2. Gonna do it anyway. We'll do it live.
Not to mention sit there and have your cursed merfolk quest and then just bounce them back to your hand when you play this guy.
Yeah. I think it's a lot more scary than what I think. Hence the pink onesie and stuff like that. So all right. Let's see.
One theme for Halloween.
One between 1 and 5. All right. Let's see how bad I regret my decision here.
Right. So this next one is another Ruby, and this is the 4-cost uninkable Goofy Railway Engineer. He's a storyborn hero, a Wendy's biggie bag over here or whatever. He's a 4 for 4, and he quest for 2. And his ability is Run Away Together. So your characters named Mickey and Minnie quest for +1 lore.
Okay. That totally just registered. He's a Wendy's biggie bag, 4 for 4. 4 for 4 questing. Because you get nugs and fries. Or you get nugs and a burger. I am a very big fan of this particular art style with Mickey and Minnie's Runaway, Railway, everything else. So I'm trying to leave that aside here. However, I do know that in Shimmering Skies, we had, I believe, a Mickey Minnie combo that they benefited from each other. The difference here...
Yeah, I think it was the dancers.
It was the dancers. The difference here is that it's Goofy. It's not, you need both Mickey and Minnie. So you get a little bit more viability out of this. Personally speaking, I'm thinking about all the Mickey Mouses we have. You have the Food Fight 1-drop. You have Wayward Sorcerer. You got the new one that Dylan you have, but you're really not questing with him. Let's lock this into the 5. I pause very hesitantly. Let's lock this into the 5. Not because I just think it requires a little bit of setup. That's just me. And I also love the this is why I wear pants and Pluto's doesn't.
Yeah, see, that would have got number 1 for me, is just the flavor text alone. And that is an actual quote from Goofy from Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. Yeah. Like, as you're writing it, at the end, he actually says, and that's where I wear pants and
Pluto he does. I act like I didn't write that ride like 3 weeks ago, but totally just blasting out. No, it's a fun card. I love the art style, but yeah, it's a little bit more broader setup, but I'm just going to slap it in the 5. And let's see if I regret or
I don't think you will. I think you made the right decision. And
what's our last one?
For personal reasons, I think you made the right decision. But our last one, we have it here, is Goofy, Captain of the Royal Guard.
Oh, break it down.
This is a 6-cost inkable Goofy. He is a storyborn hero, a knight, and a captain, because he happens to be the captain of Mickey's, or King Mickey's, Royal Guard. He is a 4/5 bodyguard with resist +2 and quest for 3.
I love the flavor text. So as long as we stick together, it'll all work out okay. It's funny how everything that we've talked about has had oops, we goofed, but it's gonna be okay for both Lorcana reasons and personal reasons too. So I like how we've kind of been consistent.
That's also a direct quote from Goofy from the Kingdom Hearts franchise, which is what this Goofy is from.
Captain of the Royal, I mean, it gets the 1 by default, but it probably would have got my one spot anyway. 4 strength, 5 willpower. Is he kind of, I don't want to say on the weaker side, but is he kind of on the weaker side for a 6? I don't know. The resist 2, I mean, that's one thing in this game is that resist is very consistent. Strength can be modified. You can reduce strength to brawl, sisu things, what have you. But the one thing that we haven't been able to do is reduce resist. Now, obviously, moving damage does bypass resist. You are moving a damage counter, but resist is still probably, I don't play with it enough. It's still probably one of my favorite mechanics in the game. Resist 2 on a 4/5, you're basically looking at a 7 body right there. The turn he's played can survive a Zeus, can survive a storm does nothing. You're looking at hard removal to get rid of him. Yeah, he would have got my he gets the 1 by default, but he would have got my 1 if you would show me this probably second or third. So, but I do want to ask
John. This
John.
card looks so good too.
I know, right? I do want to ask John though. We got to circle back to the dancing Goofy. John, what would have that got?
It would have got a 2 with this Goofy, because this Goofy's too good. Too good. It's too good to not say number 1. I mean, there's a 5 with the resist 2. Holy crap! I would play that card all the time. It would be in there. But no, the singing Goofy would be my number 2, because you have with Steel Song you have Cinderella on 1. You can have Troubadour on 2. He's a singer.
Forgot about Troubadour.
Yeah, you could do, or you got Ursula. She's a 2-drop singer. I mean, you could play that one on 4 and have Ariel, Troubadour, and Cinderella out, and play that one on 4, and he's questing for 3. It's like,
yeah.
Or you could save him till late and just have a whole bunch of singers out there. Because if you're playing everybody in your deck's a singer. Go ahead, Dylan.
And if Steel Song plays right, the way that if Steel Song hits and the way it wants to, and you have those singers on the board or whatever, and you got board state, then you're controlling the board essentially while using those singers with all the different songs and removal that you're singing. So essentially, that Disco Goofy would get the set there. Your singers would keep themselves alive from, and that's kind of an issue that Steel Song has, is at times it's kind of slow, which is why I think people are running Peppa now, and we saw the flute in the past to gain that passive lore, because you're spending so much time singing songs that you don't get to quest. But if your singers can essentially keep themselves alive by singing hard removal, you now have Goofy that can do the questing for you.
Yep. And you can do a lot of questing if you have a lot of singers out there. So, I mean,
and
three alone. Yep. 3 alone is big.
So the song plays immediate brain word, shake your groove thing. Yeah, now it's gonna be stuck in my head the entire. That's probably my favorite scene from that movie. I had to get refreshed on the original Goofy movie, but then this, like, that shake your groove thing song, like, that is a core memory of watching that film. So no, very valid. And again, maybe I just don't play Steel Song enough to get it. But yeah, it's nice to see that would have been John's number 2.
So wrapping from Goofy into our next Goofy conversation, but recently we had the Not Just a Goof documentary that came out. I know I've seen it. Preston, I believe you've seen it.
I have not, actually. I have not.
Ooh,
and John's checking in, he hasn't either.
No, I haven't had time to watch it. This has been a very busy week, and I was going to sit down and watch it this week, and I just didn't get a chance.
All right, then I won't spoil too much if you guys haven't got to see it yet, but I do want to point out that this was actually, I didn't know this, but if this was a documentary that came out, well, it was a documentary, we knew that already, but it was originally released at the Docklands Documentary Film Festival on May 4th of 2024, and I know some of the D23 members have seen parts of it at different events, and believe it was screened on one of the cruise lines events or something at the Walt Disney Family Museum in San Francisco, I do believe. but it just now came to Disney Plus and released on April 7th, just in time for the 30th anniversary. And essentially, what this does is it takes you behind the scene, and it actually, the director of the film kept a lot of the original stuff that it's crazy that they documented the entire process pretty much behind the scenes of everything from animating to storyboard to concept, all of it. And there was so much that I took away from this that it was just information. I love just information and learning in general. And growing up, I always saw this on TV. Same with the Extremely Goofy movie. This is one that was constantly rerunning. So I wasn't really familiar with the whole story until my later years of them having to compete with The Lion King and the likes of other major Disney productions that were coming out at that time. And they kind of show kind of like a backstage or back scene war between the two animation groups of
Hmm.
the Premiere Animation Group, who was making these larger titles, and then the Toon Animation, who actually made this. And if it wasn't for one guy essentially backing this team, this may not have ever released in the first place. And they talk about that guy being like a real harsh critic and stuff, but he was also their biggest supporter and follower. And it blew my mind to learn that this was not something that they set down and made as a group in one place, but as this movie was being created, they actually lost a lot of funding at certain points,
Hmm.
and the creation was actually distributed all around the world. And they actually had, I guess, majority of it was in France, but they also had a team in Toronto and a team in Australia, all animating and working on this at the exact same time, pretty much getting on, wasn't even video calls or Skype or anything at the time. They said that the director was
Ventrilla.
making videos. Yeah, he was making videos for the teams and then sending them out to those
Wow.
teams, and then they had translators there to pretty much translate what he was saying. So it was just the hardships that
Wild.
they had to go through to create this movie in the first place. And I've talked about it in the past whenever we brought up Treasure Planet. I don't want to get into that bag, but the father son dynamic has always been something interesting to me. And as I'll stick with it, the Goofy movie is my movie whenever it comes to that father son dynamic. I grew up in a household, I had a mother figure, but my mom and my father were divorced before I was a year old. And my dad is the one that I've always lived with and I've always looked at as a best friend. And me and him didn't always see eye to eye. And he's just a big kid, and he's goofy. He is a goof. And that's all there is to it. So I mean, this movie held a great connection with me, and it was really cool to see the connection that it held with other people too. They spoke upon the African American community actually like grasping onto this, and that's something. I mean, we're three white guys here. I mean, we can't really speak upon it too much, but it's so interesting from their and that cultural aspect of it, of how many characters within the film spoke and resonated with them, just as a whole and as a group. I really, I think Cleo Thomas or Tom, I think it's Cleo Thomas. It's the guy who played Zero in Holes. He's been coming out for like the past few years. I'm sure you've seen him everywhere. He keeps dressing up like Powerline and stuff. They had him in here talking about it, and I know recently he received a big care package and stuff, and he's part of this Goofy movie tour or something that's going on. And another one of the guys that I like, Tim Geddes from over at Kind of Funny Games and stuff, he was actually on here talking about the same thing. And just so many people they brought together at the end of this movie. And it was a quick montage of people saying, this is what it meant to me. And it was overwhelming between those people speaking upon it and then the director speaking upon the troubles that they went through. It kind of became a tearjerker, and I didn't expect that at all. I'm curious to see what you guys think about it once you watch it. I mean, it goes in pretty deep behind the scenes of Disney itself, and I would have never suspected that like two groups for the same company essentially were competing against each other in a sense, because I guess the major franchise of making Disney movies didn't really want to see Toon Disney succeed, because they saw them as, if you can succeed and compete against us, then any of our competitors can too.
And I think they've always done. I have to, it's on my watch list. It's on the watch list that's a million miles long. But one thing I've always been impressed with, like how with Disney, is whenever they are producing things, they have this amazing ability to capture the development of it. And if they don't do it during development, they always have the archives and the records to rebuild that process back. I think it's very similar to what they do with the cruise ships. Starting with the Wish, they did with the Wish, and now the Treasure. On Disney Plus, there is about an hour-long documentary, I believe, part of National Geographic, that takes you through the highlights of that journey of development and the inner workings and the issues and stuff like that. So the fact that they were able to do this for, the Goofy, in a sense, and the Goofy movie for the 30th, mind you, anniversary of the film, um, Disney's ability to be able to capture those pivotal moments, but then recreate them if they need to, is always a lot of fun. And it just seems like, again, on theme with the podcast, we have this D23 on the road thing. What's that about with the Goofy movie? Is it just a roadshow type thing?
Yeah, it's so looking at it for D23 members, they have the On the Road, a Goofy movie. So this is going to run between May 3rd and August 28th at select theaters. So we really don't know what theaters they are yet,
Mm.
but they have quite a bit of cities listed out here. Anywhere from, it looks like Saturday, May 3rd is the first one in Las Vegas, all the way to August 24th at Indianapolis, and Thursday, August 28th at Orlando. I think the closest one to us I was looking at was possibly August 23rd in Cleveland, Ohio. So a lot of major cities across the entire United States will have this going on. And if you are a gold member for D23, then tickets start at $35 plus a $3 processing fee. And general D23 members, it is $45 a ticket. Tickets will go on sale on Thursday, April 17th, starting at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard and 1 p.m. Eastern. So, what's going on here? It says, calling all goofs. We're excited to kick off our brand new multi city touring series, the D23 on the Road, with a celebration of a Goofy movie's 30th anniversary. We will be bringing this iconic film, along with a uniquely D23 experience, to more than 20 cities this summer. Get ready to relive the film's most iconic moments and songs D23 style. Throughout the movie, you'll be part of the magic with a special activation kit packed with fun surprises to use during the interactive parts of the show. So, what's included in your ticket? You get a big screen presentation of the Goofy movie with whatever these fan powered moments are. You get the activation kit with interactive surprises and themed goodies. You get a Lester's Possum Park pennant, a Powerline concert ticket with a lanyard. So it's just a commemorative Powerline ticket, but that's still a pretty cool thing to have. A limited edition Goofy movie pin for all the pin collectors out there. You get photo opportunities inspired by the scenes from the film. So potentially having Powerline, Goofy, Max, people we've seen within the parks possibly being there. And then you get exclusive content, trivia, and more. Is this worth $35 to $45 a ticket? I don't know. I want to know more about this, because to me it just seems like you're watching a movie and you're getting some extra goodies and collectibles for a movie that you can get on Disney Plus and watch for whatever you're paying there.
So it looks like they have basically turned this into what a lot of local theater productions do with the Rocky Horror Picture Show, where they have like the interactive moments where you're watching the play, and then during the wedding bell scene, everyone throws rice everywhere, and then there's a scene with toilet paper and glow sticks and stuff like that. So that seems, I knew nothing about this prior to the show and whatnot. So now that I've looked at the page, that sounds like what they've done here is they are going to have, like, as things they usually give you like a cheat card saying, I don't know, whenever Max dances at the not the last day of school assembly, what have you. Maybe people break out a glow stick or throw something, not at people, but towards the stage or whatnot. So it sounds like that's what they've done. And I have participated in said Rocky Horror Picture Show interactive things before. There was a production in our state not too long ago. It was fun. I think it's something that only iconic films can really successfully pull off, like really well-known films. So Goofy movie, I didn't realize it had as big of a following as what it did until I started seeing all the press boxes going out for the Powerline gear and for the 30th anniversary of the Goofy movie. So that seems what they've done here. It's just going to be up to you. Like if you like that interactive stuff, and plus there's a lot of films that are being re-screened in theaters now, like re-premiered and whatnot. That's a big thing going on right now. And the fact that they're kind of making it interactive in a sense with certain key moments in the film, it's pretty cool. I don't know if I'm going to go on my way. Now, if this was one of those things that if it was in my state, sure, why not? Like it's in my backyard, it's 30 minutes away, I'll do it. But for us, it's a multi-hour drive to make it to any of these locations. So I'm like, yeah, probably nothing else.
Again, I think the closest is Cleveland to us, maybe Richmond.
Yeah,
but we are in the middle of nowhere too, so
right. We are at least a decent drives any place really. But kind of related that we don't have in the notes. I know we're kind of not going long. We're kind of on time with everything else, but we're going to kind of not rapid fire. We're going to hit some quick topics here and around Lorcana, and then if we still have time, we'll close out with Disney trivia, and that'll be a cap on the episode. But kind of rapid firing something that wasn't inside here is there was a merchandising event at the Contemporary at Disney World where they had a bunch of influencers come out. I don't know what the name of that event was, but it was merchandising. It had I think it was, if it wasn't Goofy movie related, it was definitely heavily skewed for the Goofy movie. But they had Lorcana there. They had Ryan Miller there that was actually promoting the game, signing cards, playing games with people. Maybe we'll include this inside the next episode, but there's 2 pieces of art that in the booth that we have not seen before. So we'll explore that whenever we get there. But that was also kind of interesting. I know they had definitely had a Goofy movie stuff there, but that was kind of an honorable mention here too. Final few things here before we get, we're kind of reaching that, Disney, etc. version or topics of the show here. But the D23 2024 promo collection that was famously photographed outside of the Anaheim Convention Center that had this massive line where you got, 4 or 5 promos of 1 card from each set. And then at the time, a card from an unreleased set being Oswald. And it was full art cards. It was Mickey Mouse, Brave Little Tailor. It was Vanellope Von Sweet, Ursula Deceiver, Oswald, and Bruno. Those were the cards. They got their full art, alternate art that kind of like extended the art of the cards, and you can only get it at D23. And right now the resale value is going for quite a bit, but out of nowhere they decided to hold a lottery for D23 gold members, and let's just say 2 of the 3 people in this podcast successfully got selected for the raffle here. So Dylan has his, I believe. Yep. So the thing of it is, are you opening it or are you keeping it sealed? I don't know who makes that show, but
no, I think I'm going to keep it sealed.
Keep it sealed.
Granted,
okay. I think John's the same way.
I also think that two of the 3 people of this podcast also got it the first time around, right?
Yes, I did. I had someone at D23. I had a friend who had a friend who got it at D23 for me and him. So, yeah. And I opened mine and had them graded.
So as
yeah. So then I got to,
as someone who missed out the first time around, this lottery was really cool, and it gave me the opportunity to get something that I didn't the first time.
Yeah, I was surprised to see it. I haven't checked. I'm wondering if it's I wonder if they reprinted them. I'm curious to see. I have my other box. I still have my box. I need to see if numbers line up on it. I didn't take that close of a look at it. I'm not opening up my second one because The only reason I did it was because I was disappointed that I opened up mine and graded them, and my Mickey got a corner bent somehow between sending it off and them getting it, and then it was like,
Got something.
so yeah, I
The,
wanted
the
another
gold tape
Mickey.
on the side of the box is pretty cool packaging. I don't
Oh
want to
yeah.
like tear
Oh,
the tape.
yeah.
Well,
No,
usually
it's beautiful.
I let Dylan see what it looked like when it was open because I still have the box. It is like, yeah, it's quite the presentation if you open it. It's very cool. So
It's beautiful cards.
yeah.
I've just been buying the singles as I see them. The Vanellope was a gift to my wife. I bought the Bruno because I like the rats at the bottom. The only one I'm still chasing is the Mickey. So even if I did get the lottery, I probably wouldn't. Cool if I would have got it, but I'm not disappointed that I did get it because again, the only one I'm still hunting right now is the Mickey. So I'm just kind of grabbing them off eBay whenever I can. But yeah, I don't know. They shipped really quickly though, like very
Super
quickly,
quick.
super quick. So maybe they reprinted it and stockpiled it and then did this, or maybe this is left over from D23. I did have a friend at D23, and I was like, hey, like because they had offered, they're like, hey, we can pick up stuff from D23, and I was like, Ravensburger, and I was like, never mind. Like I saw the lines, I was like, please do not wait in line. I was like, I will find another means. So that was cool. They did a lottery, it shipped really quickly. Glad to see a lot of folks getting that product too, because these are beautiful commemorative cards. The Mickey is personally my favorite, but also related to D23. Kind of the elephant in the room is where's Iago?
Where
where's
is Iago?
Where's Iago? So back, I forget when they did this. It's been a while. I want to say no, like Q4 last year. They were like, "Hey, if you sign up for D23 Gold, you're gonna get you always and normally get a whole bunch of goodies." But new of this is they included a new Iago as part of the welcome set. This was a promo Iago, and I believe we have a close up of the image here of the card itself. It's a set 8 card. It has that D23 logo in the very bottom. And so I fully expect this to be a card that we'll get with Raina Jafar in the coming months. But pretty interesting card where while you have another exerted character in play, this character can't be challenged. That's pretty cool. But it's been a while. It has been a while since they announced this. We have been able to buy memberships. I think it was new memberships beginning in January. I think that was a stipulation.
Yes, it was
Was it done?
January. They opened them up January 2nd because I did mine on January 2nd, and it said 6 to 8 weeks is when you'll get your package in the mail, and I have
We
yet
are
to
well
see
beyond
anything. So,
yeah. You got other goodies, like I think a car sticker, and I think you got like a membership plaque or something like that. And yeah, so the Iago is the main thing that a lot of Lorcana folks have picked up. It's a beautiful card too. It's like that sand theme. You have the ink symbol in the upper left fizzling away. You got the strength and willpower kind of blowing away in the sand. It's a beautiful card. But again, has yet to be shipped. And I don't know when. Are they going to wait for set 8? Don't know. I don't know why they would, unless this card just doesn't exist. They're going to print Iago and then print alt Iagos. I'm not too sure, but that's still coming. You can still sign up. It wasn't a limited type thing, at least. Whenever, depending on when you're listening to this, definitely make sure you check out the D23 website to make sure that's still in the offerings. But at least at the time of recording, April 13th, you can still go on the website, become a D23 Gold member, and it also gets you access to a lot of other things. But for us Lorcana players, that's kind of the big one. So who knows when those are going to arrive? We don't know, but I'll be excited.
But everything else we've talked about, I mean, the other Lorcana thing here, the lottery system was for D23 people.
Yep.
This D23 Goofy show that they have on the road all summer long, which you also have to have your D23 card or membership card for. So if you haven't received those yet, when you signed up in January, the first showing for that is May 3rd. But this does seem like the perfect time, not sponsored at all, but if you are a Disney fan or a Lorcana fan, it seems like this may be the perfect time to sign up for D23 because now you're getting benefits on both sides, not just as a Disney fan, but also as a Lorcana player.
Yep.
or collector.
No, it's a good incentive. It moved the needle for me. I signed up. So, but before we get to our Disney trivia, some quick Disney related stuff, more so in the video game kind of side of things. So, Dylan, what are we working? Actually, no, we have one Lorcana thing in here, but two of the three being not Lorcana related. But kind of quick bites here. What's coming out? What's coming soon?
Yeah, so something cool on our end here is we are produced or sponsored by the Gamers Lounge podcast, who is a video game podcast first and foremost, but then we are the Disney link or branch of that. But we got two really cool Disney releases that I see here, which the first is Disney Illusion Island. This is a 2D multiplayer game or single player that released originally, I believe, on July 28th of 2023. It released on the Nintendo Switch. And now it has been announced that on May 30th it will be coming to PS5, Xbox Series X and S, and Microsoft. This is a really cool game that is part of the Illusion series, and if you're a gamer at all and you know a little bit about Disney gaming history, then you remember like Mickey's Illusion Castle or Disney's Illusion Castle and stuff like that. This is essentially like part of that franchise or an extension of it. It's weird that this got almost like a 2-year gap, but I guess Nintendo originally had a 2 years licensing deal or with them or whatever, where they would have it just on the Switch for that long before they would turn around and let these other consoles release it. This game has also been released, or not released, but been nominated multiple times since its original release for multiple family awards of like in that category of best family game, best multiplayer game. It's won a couple, been nominated for a lot. It is great for couch co-op. Not a lot of games are doing that nowadays, unless you're Hazelight Studios and Joseph Fares. But this is really cool, something that a family can play. You can play with your kids. If you have children, they can get together and play. And now it's not limited to just the Switch, but you can play it on any of your other consoles that you have as well. Then the second one, something that again came up kind of out of nowhere, that normally with games and stuff you'll get original trailers that have release dates. This one I hadn't heard anything about, but it is called Disney Villains Cursed Cafe, and it was released, or this trailer came out during a Nintendo Direct that came out probably a week prior to the Nintendo Switch 2 announcement. And it reminds me of there's another game called Coffee Talk, or a series called Coffee Talk. So it's almost like a story or a book. They have it. It says that it is a new visual novel. So there you go. It's like a book. It is a visual novel where every magical potion sparks unexpected twist. As the newest potionista, so almost like a barista making coffee or such, even though in this game it feels like you're more like a bartender, of this mysterious cafe, you'll craft magical blends of for reimagined villains. It's a really cool art style, and they do reimagine all the villains from like Cruella de Vil, the Evil Queen, Gaston, Hook, Jafar, Maleficent, Ursula, even Yzma makes an appearance. But it's a visual novel that has the story and tells the story of each of these villains, and they're all in this cursed cafe for different reasons. And as you interact with them and serve them, do potions, drinks, however you want to go about it, the story changes depending on what you give them. So it's really, really neat. It's a cute little cozy game. It's kind of mature, like in a lot of the conversations that are being had, and there's a lot of references to things that are happening in our world currently. Yet the game itself, even though I reference Coffee Talk, which I really enjoy, this is dumbed down, and it plays more like a child's game, almost like something you would play on your phone or an app or something on an iPad, almost like the Papa's Freezeria stuff. The gameplay, it's not great, but if you like villains and you like this art style, maybe it is something that you can turn around and just play for a little bit every now and then and learn these stories. It kind of reminds me of the books that came out not too long ago, where each one of them is about a different villain and tells their side of things.
It's also available on a lot of platforms too.
Yeah, it really,
everywhere.
That's the thing. This one, whenever it dropped, it wasn't a release date. It was like, hey, this is out now,
Now,
and it's available everywhere.
And $15.
That's
That's
all I
cheap.
have.
oh, $15. Okay.
Yeah, 50. It's cheap, but again, for this game, it's your prerogative there. Like, if you're a huge Disney fan and you think that you'll enjoy it, great. To me, this is like a non-99 game.
$15 is $15, right?
Yeah, we spend more than that on cardboard. But what's our last little bit of Lorcana news we have
Yeah.
there, Preston?
So kind of the something that's been talked about for the past 2 or 3 sets, kind of get into that, Disney related merchandising type thing here. The Lorcana premium card portfolio and deck boxes. These they were announced, I want to say 2 sets ago. So not Azure, I want to say in Shimmering Skies. I could look back. It's been a minute. But these are, I forget the producer. John probably knows off the top of his head here. Is it Ultra Pro?
Yep, that's right.
Ultra Pro? Okay, yep. So they're Ultra Pro products where you have a premium card portfolio and deck box with that iconic Lorcana purple with the gold lore symbol, the Lorcana symbol embossed with Disney Lorcana on the side. These have been delayed for multiple sets, and there's been at least 2 or 3 announcements where it's like, hey, they're not going to be out. We anticipate to get them out, with the next set, and then eventually they were like, hey, sorry, not this set. There was a Facebook post, I believe, a day or 2 ago, where they said that they're happy to share that the TCG premium card portfolio and deck boxes will be available to all retailers over the next few weeks. So not coinciding with a set launch like Reign of Jafar or Fabled, it seems like they are just going to get them out whenever they're ready, and it looks like they are going to be hitting the local game shop. So DisneyLorcana.com/locator lets you locate your nearest retailer. And also, it's specific to note that this is coming to local game shops. So don't expect this. We don't know if this will ever hit big box stores, but I would check with your local game shops. I know whenever it comes to distributors and suppliers that some shops get more of certain product than others. So over the next few weeks, if you are looking to purchase these products, maybe worth having a conversation to see if your game shop knows anything from their distributor to see if they're beautiful too. I've already got a larger card portfolio from all my league promos. The deck box, I believe the deck box as well. I don't think we have an image ready of it, but I believe it opens up and it actually doubles as a lore counter where you can move like an emblem or something like that to keep track of your lore.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's beautiful. I like the deck box more than I do the actual card portfolio. So that's coming out over the next couple weeks here. So nice to see an update around that, but still waiting for D23 stuff. But we've reached that time. It's time for Disney trivia. It has been a goofy week in both our lives personally and with Lorcana. So I don't know. Will we have some goofy related trivia? Don't know. But John, Disney trivia. Let's close up this episode.
I wanted to get it, but looking through 2,500 cards to try to find
That's a
goofy
lot.
movie was a lot. So, but
That's a lot.
I do have some though. I mean, I do have some. So let's see. Dylan won the last one, so Preston goes first. Dylan's up 4-2. Well, you got to win this one, Preston. I mean, come on. It's
We'll see.
going to be a rout. All right, here we go. Question number 1. In Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End, Elizabeth, Will, and the Black Pearl crew are trying to rescue Jack from where?
It's been a minute since I've seen that. For some reason, it's probably wrong, but I remember Jack Sparrow just being on a deserted island. But I don't think that's what they're trying to save him from. I think he ends up there through some reason.
Well, that's not.
I'm
You're kind of
I'm gonna say a deserted island, but I know there's probably something else better.
I'm going to call that incorrect.
Okay, yep.
Dylan, what do you think?
Davy Jones's locker.
That is correct.
See, that was too. That's what I thought. I was like, that's
Thanks,
too
SpongeBob.
easy.
Yeah.
I was like, Davy Jones. I was like, that's so like, okay, yeah.
But
I thought it, but I was like, that's too pirate.
That was, I think it was like a desert island, though, wasn't it? Wasn't Davy Jones's locker like a desert
with a bunch
island?
of crabs on it?
Yeah,
or
it was a bunch of
something?
crabs because he kind of goes a little crazy. That's the one you always
forgot how he
see,
got
the little
there.
meme that you see him kind of going crazy and then running off.
I think he was dead.
Yeah, I think so. I think he was dead.
Spoiler.
It's been a while since I've seen At World's End. So
Close.
all right, Dylan. In what country does Beauty and the Beast take place?
France.
That is correct. that one was a little too easy. I don't know. I think this one's easy.
What's that guy's name again?
Oh, Monsieur. Yeah, I don't know. Watch when the unboxing videos come out. Everybody will know.
Eventually.
There's an ongoing joke because whenever they released the Monsieur card, it's just like we had to big brain. We're like, where is this guy from? Like they dug deep for that card. Like I was like, who is this guy?
Because by the time we figured it out, he was like on screen for like 5 seconds or something. Dylan was what we figured out. It was something silly. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. Preston, name the 7 dwarves.
Oh, goodness. Okay. So, Doc.
Yep.
I'm going to write these down with me. I'm not Googling, but I just want to make sure I don't double check here. So, I'm going to do Doc.
Yep.
Sneezy. Dopey.
Yep.
Oh, geez. Happy.
Yep.
Bashful.
Yep.
Grumpy.
Yep. 2 more.
Sleepy, because the interplays exerted.
Yep.
I'm thinking about all the cards.
1 more.
Stock, Sneezy, Dopey, Happy, Bashful, Grumpy, Sleepy. Oh, man. I got Bashful. I got Grumpy.
Yep.
I got Dopey. I got Happy. I got Sneezy. I got Doc.
That's all 7, right?
Wait, hold on. 2, 4, 6, 7. Yeah, 7.
Yeah, you got all 7. Well, you said Sneezy there, and I didn't hear you say Sneezy the first time.
Yeah, I said Doc and Sneezy.
Oh, okay. I missed the Sneezy part. So I'm like, oh, wait a minute.
I'm not trying to conjure up another 8th dwarf here.
Okay, I had to stop and think because I didn't hear you say Sneezy, and then when you said it there when you were reading off your list,
well,
I'm like,
I wrote them down in a quick note on my Mac here.
Okay, it was a good thing you did because I didn't want to mark on the card, but I was trying to check them off as I went. So I didn't hear you say Sneezy.
Crisis. I was like, which other one is there? Promotion that I don't know. But,
just kidding. Anyway, Dylan, what year? This is a multiple choice question. What year did the original Muppet Show debut on TV? A. 1970. B. 1976. C. 1980. Or D. 1986.
$1976.
The greatest year ever because I was born that year. That is correct. That is correct. It was 1976.
God bless Jim Henson.
Uh-huh. All right, Preston. He's up 3-1, but that's okay. We'll do the last question anyway. This is a multiple choice as well.
Thank goodness.
A recreation of Carl's house from Up was built in what U.S. state? A. Wyoming. B. Utah. C. Pennsylvania. Or D. California.
See, California seems too easy. Was it Wyoming? Was one?
Yeah, Wyoming was one. It was Wyoming, Utah, Pennsylvania, and California.
I'm gonna say my heart leans Utah, but no, it's probably Pennsylvania. I'm gonna guess Utah.
You are correct. It was Utah.
Hey,
yeah,
there we go. I was like some random state. I was like California was too easy because of the studios. Wyoming seems a little left field, and I was like one coast to the other. So we shot in the park.
If it was Pennsylvania, we all would have known it because
that's true. We probably would have heard about it at some point.
Yeah, so I didn't explain the rules, but it's 5 questions back and forth. If you've been listening, you know now. But Dylan won. It was close. It ended up being close.
That's
One
close.
question, 3-2. So Dylan's
Deserted
up
Island,
5-2.
Davy Jones Walker.
That's all right. I mean, you were this close. It was very hard for me to go.
No, it's fair. No, that's fair. No, what Davy Jones Locker was the right answer.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
no,
that's all
fun.
I got.
That's fun. Thanks, John. Well, folks, if you made it this far, thank you for listening. I know we're getting into the summer season. You know, everyone's busy. The three of us are busy with work and lives and everything else. So, you know, the fact that we're able to break apart for just a little bit, about once a month, and talk about this game and really just ecosystem that we love is a lot of fun. So. No matter what platform you're listening on, thank you for listening. But as always, a lot of this is linked down in the description with others, but we always welcome your questions or thoughts in the comments on Spotify or YouTube, or even to our email address, podcast@theinktable.com. Also, if you have any questions or just general feedback, you know, we welcome it entirely. Leave us a voicemail at voiceline.app/theinktable. I'm gonna have to impersonate somebody and go in and leave us a voicemail or whatnot. You can also easily find and follow all of our socials, not only personally, both Dylan and I, but also for the show itself and all the platforms in which we are found on at our link tree. /the ink table link is inside the description on YouTube, or also going to be inside the description. Be sure to follow Dylan on X, DylanBA17, if memory serves correct, and also at Preston McNair on YouTube for more Lorcana content. So no matter where you're listening from or what platform you're listening on, be sure to consider liking the podcast, subscribing, no matter the platform you're listening on. Leave us a review on the platform of your choice, because ultimately it helps us reach out to other Illumineers who might need to pull up a seat at the ink table and join us for some nice little kind of fun. So, folks, it helps us out more than you can ever imagine by engaging with the podcast, no matter what platform you're on. So, folks, enjoy Lorcana, enjoy Arcasia's Island. I don't know if we're going to be speaking to you all again before set championships, but if you are participating, have fun. I'll leave a link inside the description below to a timestamp of where we gave the world a little pep talk around set champs. But have fun, play what you're most comfortable with. Just have fun with it. I know that's a big thing coming up that really impacts all players. So enjoy it. You know, do what you got to do. So, but as always, folks, see you on the next episode of the Ink Table. There will always be a seat for you in our little community and at the Ink Table. See you on the next one.
All right, guys. Happy Easter.